Welcome everyone to today's episode of Waste Not What Blood. I'm Maria, your host, your local SDG enthusiast, and the person who will always remind you to bring an eco bag when shopping. Because let's be real, we've all hoarded more plastic bags than we can count.
Guilty, I still have that one drawer at home that looks exactly like a plastic bag easy. Anyway, I'm Z, and today we're diving into one of the most important global issues, responsible consumption and production, or SE12.
So there's a fun, or actually a fact. Did you know that 1.3 billion tons of wood are wasted worldwide every year? That's like throwing away one third of all the food produced globally. Imagine if the food is properly distributed. We wouldn't have millions going away.
And it's not just about food, we're also talking about plastic waste, fast fashion, all the unnecessary things we bought just because they were on sale, which, let's be honest, is a trap.
We'll be discussing how all of this affects us, our wallets, our communities, and our planet. But don't worry, we won't just scare you. We'll also talk about real solutions. And to help us with that, we have our amazing guests. All right, let's bring it closer to home. Weedray, what's the situation like in the Philippines when it comes to waste?
Thanks, Maria. One of the biggest problems we see is the sheer amount of plastic waste and food waste in our country. Many people buy things they don't need, and businesses overproduce, leading to unnecessary waste. For example, I've seen markets throwing away perfectly good fruits and vegetables just because they don't look perfect. Meanwhile, there are people struggling to afford food, which is frustrating.
Well, wasteful consumption strategies from the environment. It also deepens social inequality. Marginalized communities live in areas where waste accumulates, leading to health issues. At the same time, sustainable products like organic food or eco-friendly packaging are expensive, making it harder for low-income families to make environmentally friendly choices.
So it's clear that more consumers and producers plays a role. Alliza, what do you think can be done at a systemic level?
The education system should promote sustainability from an early age. The government and businesses should also implement the stricter regulations on waste and overproduction. But we as individuals also need to take responsibility. Here's a crazy stat. The Philippines is the largest contributor of ocean plastic waste in the world, right after China and Indonesia. That's about what 2.7 million electric tons or metric tons of plastic waste generated annually, with over 500,000 metric tons ending up at the ocean.
And beyond plastic and food waste, we also have major issues with electronic waste or e-waste. Updated phones, broken gadgets, people often won't dispose of them properly. If not handled well, toxic chemicals from e-waste can seep into the soil and water, affecting both human health and ecosystem.
And where food is being wasted, hunger remains a major issue. About 2.9 million Filipino families experience hunger regularly, based on PCA 2010 rate. The mismatch between food waste and hunger is shocking.
Now, let's take a spiritual dive for a moment. Z, how does SDG 12 connect to Christian teachings or Christian morality and consumption?
Well, Christianity teaches us that we're supposed to be stewards of the earth, diba? That means taking care of it, not exploiting it for short-term gain, but overconsumption. That's basically like the opposite of stewardship. It's like God gave us this beautiful garden, and we're going like, thanks, but we're just going to bulldoze it to build a shopping mall. And I don't think Jesus one side eye that. I think he'd be like, you really need that many shoes. You might see them as a key here. Is not doing whatever you want. It's about making responsible choices. Real freedom is when you consider the well-being of others and the planet. So when you choose sustainable product instead of plastic one, that's not just real. That's not just a choice. It's a choice to respect creation and your fellow human beings. That's the true freedom that we should be aiming for. Exactly. This is where natural law at Yuvatal sets it. Natural law teaches us that we are meant to care for the earth. It's not optional. It's built into the very fabric of our existence, and human law should reflect that by making us to sin a bit. If we can legislate human rights, why not legislate the right to clean air and the healthy body too? So it's all about conscious too. Every time you buy something, throw some away, or eat something, you're making a moral decision. And that's where it's important to start asking ourselves, do I really need this? Or do I really need this pair of shoes when I only have two? Or I'm just trying to fill an emotional void. Let's talk about the actual cost of all this responsible consumption. B, hit us with the reality check.
Oh boy, the cost is massive. We're talking about resource depletion, climate change, and poverty on a scale that's hard to even fathom. Our kids and grandkids all might have to fight for clean water like it's a Black Friday. Imagine a world where clean water is a luxury, extreme heat is the norm, and food shortage are common. That doesn't sound fun, does it?
And don't even get me started on fast fashion. People are buying cheap clothes, wearing them a few times, and then tossing them out. And guess what? Those clothes aren't biodegradable. They're just going to sit in a landfill, slowly poisoning the planet. The fashion industry alone is responsible for 10% of global carbon emissions and 20% of global wastewater. So before you buy your next throwaway fashion piece, maybe think about whether you actually need it.
And it's not just about fast fashion. Our electronic waste is just as alarming. With new gadgets coming out every year, people are discarding old phones, right? Laptops, tablets at an alarming rate. The toxic chemicals in e-waste like lead and mercury contaminated soil and water, harming both humans and wildlife. Instead of operating every year, why not extend the life of your devices and recycle them properly?
Food waste is another massive issue. Did you know that one-third of all food produced globally goes to waste? That's about 1.3 billion tons of food that could have fed millions of people suffering from hunger. But instead, it rots in landfills, releasing methane, a greenhouse gas even more potent than carbon dioxide. It's time to be more mindful of our consumption habits, from the food we buy to the priorities we serve.
Exactly. It's time for mindful decision. Quality over quantity. Whether it's fashion, food, or electronics, our choices today shapes the future. Let's think beyond the convenience and trends for a sustainable world. So, what policies are in place to tackle all this waste and overconsumption?
In the Philippines, we've got illegal solid waste management act, which encourages recycling, composting, and proper waste disposal. If it was a game changer when it was passed, but let's be real, execution is lacking. We see trash segregation bins in public spaces. But how many of us actually follow the system? And how many local government actually proper with information and recycling programs?
That's a big problem. We have laws, but enforcement is weak. According to the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or the leader was DNR, only 35% of local government units, LGUs in the Philippines, properly implement solid waste management programs. That means the rest either won't have proper facilities or don't prioritize waste management at all. And when policies aren't enforced, people fall back into bad habits. We've seen bans on single use plastics in some cities, but in others, they're still everywhere. There's no national ban yet, unlike in other countries like Kenya, which strictly enforces its plastic ban with safety lines.
Exactly. In Kenya, If you're caught producing, selling, or even plastic bags, you can be fined up to 40,000 or jailed for 4 years. That's serious commitment. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, we have cities trying to implement plastic bags ban, but enforcement is so inconsistent that people find loopholes like biodegradable plastics that don't actually break down properly.
Let's look at some global examples. Sweden. They've almost eliminated landfill waste because they have an advanced waste to energy program. Over 99% of household waste is recycled and turned into energy. Imagine if you had a system like that here.
And in South Korea, they have pay-as-you-throw system for food waste. People have to buy special biodegradable bags for their food waste, and the cost depends on how much they throw away. That makes people think twice before wasting food.
That's brilliant. So people become more mindful at their consumption. Because waste literally costs them money.
Government policies alone won't fix this problem. Businesses need to help or need to step up too. Companies are major contributors to waste from packaging to overproduction. That's why there's a push for the Extended Producer Responsibility or EPR Act, which was passed in the Philippines in 2022.
The EPR law companies responsible for the waste their products create, especially waste. If a company produces plastic packaging, they need to have a plan to collect and recycle it. It's a step forward, but again, will it actually be enforced?
Some companies are actually doing great work. For example, Unilever has a goal to make all its plastic packaging recyclable, reusable, or compostable by 2025. Meanwhile, the Body Shop has a refill program where customers can bring old containers to refill instead of buying new ones. If more companies follow these models, we'd see a huge reduction in waste.
And let's not forget social enterprises. Brands like Rags to Riches are turning discarded fabric scraps into beautiful, high-quality fashion items while giving local artisans fair wages. It proves that sustainability and fitability can go hand in hand. Sounds like they got some policies, but they need better enforcement. Z, what can individuals do to help?
Let's start small. You can reduce waste at home, support businesses that are sustainable, and what else? Be vocal about the policies you want to see. Remember, your voice and your wallet are powerful tools for change. Every time you support a sustainable brand, you're spending or you're sending a message that we need more of that.
Ultimately, policies and laws will only work if we as individuals, businesses, and communities actually participate. It's not just about the government or corporations doing their part. We all have a role in making sustainable consumption and production a reality.
The planet can't wait for slow changes anymore. The time to act is now, and it starts the choices we make every day.
If we all did something, whether it's as small as saying no to plastic or big as influencing policies, we could create real change.
And that's why conversations like this matter. The more we educate ourselves and others, the closer we get to a truly sustainable way. Alright, let's wrap this up. Quick recap today.
Overconsumption is a huge issue, and we need to be mindful of our habits.
It's not just an environmental issue, it's also a social justice issue too.
And we need policies that actually work. But we also need to take responsibility.
Final thoughts? What's one action listeners can take today?
Reduce waste and recycle.
Support sustainable businesses.
Only buy what you actually need.
Those are solid takeaways. Thank you to our panel for insightful discussion. And to our listeners, be conscious.
be responsible, and be the change. Until next time, this has been
Waste not, one not. Thank you for tuning in.